Everyone, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. I am back from a longer vacation than planned. It was just going to be a couple of days away, and it turned out to be a little bit more. I went to get on the highway, and my vehicle decided no, didn't want to. So we had to wait another day, and we were able to find a mobile mechanic that was able to kind of nurse us through getting home. And then we'll have to see what we have to do because it may be the entire freaking transmission. So that was just lovely. But you know what? Maybe there was a reason that I wasn't supposed to get on the highway. You know, you never know why things happen the way that they do. With that being said, it's a good segue into the topic that I am going to discuss right now. There is a trigger warning right here that I'm going to be discussing the topic of infant loss, stillbirth, miscarriage, and grief photography, newborn loss photography. If this is one that you'd like to skip out of, I totally understand. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and show the news article first that I'm going to read from. Grab your tissues, okay? So, in light of all of the topics that have been brought up by the outrageous behavior of somebody who chooses to use their raw grief as a shield and as a weapon, as one of our amazing panel guests, Possum Wrangler, said so well. I really like that, that concept of, when a person is disordered and they use their personality disorder or ailment or loss even as their shield and their weapon. My email has been filled with people who are sharing very, very heartbreaking stories of losing their own infant, and they have open and raw wounds from the disgusting and terrible things that this person has been saying about her own infant loss. It is tragic that that happened to her, but it is not appropriate in the ways in which she exploits and manipulates that bit of information at all. I have not had anybody who is comfortable enough to want to go live on a panel about the topic. They are hurting and they are vulnerable. They don't want what they divulge to be used against them by the same person who has opened those wounds. I understand and respect that. As a result, I'm going to talk about this story that I just saw this weekend, and talk to you about how that relates to some things. This article was just posted 10 hours ago. I had seen this lady's social media this weekend. Um, so I knew that this was going to be coming out more as people would comment on it. This was an MSN article. MSN, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, MSN. So it was under, I might be smart enough to paste this link in, but if I don't, you can see it right here. So it's in msn.com in the lifestyle. It says family mom's powerful stillbirth photos capture what it's like to lose 3 triplets. I can't imagine anything more sad and devastating. And I really commend the courage of this woman to speak out. And there are pictures of the unalive infants that you may not want to see. Again, if you don't want to listen or view, thank you. I understand completely. If you don't want to see but would like to hear, as you know, my channel is very podcast friendly. Very, very listener friendly channel I have since I'm not technologically savvy. Okay? So, with that being said, the title starts like this, and it says Mom's powerful stillbirth photos capture what it's like to lose 3 triplets. And it was written by Lauren Levy. And again, it reiterates that trigger warning. And so the trigger warning says this post contains images and information about stillbirth and infant loss, which may be triggering to some. And it goes ahead and it says, after losing all of her triplets at different times in her pregnancy, a young woman shared photos of her tiny premature babies, taken just hours after they were delivered. Desiree Buho Olson, who lives in Wisconsin, lost each of her 3 babies in a different way. Stillbirth, miscarriage, and hours after delivery, in every parent's worst nightmare. In the midst of her unthinkable loss, she posted the images on Facebook and Instagram, despite knowing that they could upset some people, in order to share her heartbreak instead of hide it from the world. Desiree and her partner, Tom Gerke, were thrilled when they found out that they were expecting triplets, 2 girls and 1 boy. And there she is. And that is her Instagram profile. She's got the Desiree Buhrow, Buhrow, Desiree. Desiree Buhrow. I hope I said that right, and if I didn't, I'm sorry. In January 2018, the pair found out that Desiree was pregnant, and they were overjoyed with their triplets' September due date. It was our first pregnancy, and I was 1 month pregnant. We were excited, Desiree told Cover Images. It was scary being told that we were having triplets. We had to think about 3 babies. Not one. I'm only 21, not married, and there are no triplets in our families. It was a shock. Tragically, they lost 1 baby, named Madeline, in February. The image shows what I assume to be one of the first images where Madeline would have been shown, because it says it's a girl. And if we go to that, let's see here, doesn't show there what how many weeks along. If they were due in September 9, so she would have lost Madeline very early in that maybe 8 to 12 week. But they say it's a girl, so I'm not sure. This could be showing another aspect of the photo. You know what? I bet you it is, because, well, that one is there, and then the next one is dated in May, it looks like. So I'm not sure if this picture is of the surviving boy and girl, or if this is the one that she miscarried. It's not clear there. The next picture shows baby B, and it says that baby B is breech with an anterior placenta, and it's referring to the maternal right. And it has the turtle sign, and it is pointing a very clear turtle sign saying it's a boy. Um, when you have ultrasounds, you'll see that turtle sign, and you know that I am more than overly incredibly blessed, as I am the mom to 5 sons and 1 daughter. My youngest are twins. So I have seen this turtle sign 5 times. Shortly after confirming her pregnancy, doctors discovered that Desiree had a large ovarian cyst and needed surgery to remove it. As they were closely monitoring it over the weeks before her operation, a scan revealed that she had miscarried one of her triplets. I can very much relate to this, as my twins might have been triplets themselves. I had a large fibroid tumor that was growing at the same rate as the twins up to the 16-week mark when it stopped. And there are some theories out there that fibroids are early miscarriages. So some say no, some say yes. I don't know. Um it's always something that's kind of made me pause and think. Um and so that, when I'm reading this, I'm really relating to this poor lady. I can't imagine being so young, unmarried, and on the first pregnancy, dealing with the thought of triplets and then losing one and then needing surgery during the pregnancy. I had to have surgery during my fourth pregnancy. And as y'all know, as I've talked about, that led to 3 months inpatient for that pregnancy with a nephrostomy. So she goes on to say that she had some spotting before, but she thought there would have been more blood losing a baby. We called her Madeline, and it was hard to take in that she'd died, Desiree said. It was sad to hear, but we're still grateful that the other two were still alive. However, I was nervous about the operation. I didn't want to lose any more babies. Now, where she states here that she says that she'd had some spotting before, but thought there would have been more blood losing a baby. Um, in any pregnancy, especially one of multiples, if you have any bleeding whatsoever, even blood tinged discharge, or anything that doesn't feel like urine leaking, please do not hesitate to go to your nearest emergency room, call your obstetrician, do whatever you need to do to make sure that everything is okay. I've had an amniotic leak before, I've had spotting, I've had premature labor, so I've had to find out all of these things. Just a moment, please. Jesus, it's okay. Come here. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Speaking of infant loss, this is one thing that my Big Mama Kisses does every night. She has this little stuffed animal that she's had for 10 years, and it's kind of woolly. It's about the same size as a kitten. And every night, she'll go around with it in her mouth, and she'll be like in a trance, and she'll do that, the caterwauling, like crying and whatnot. And she was rescued. Well, Kisses was rescued from an abandoned building. The firemen found her and her baby daddy and 6 kittens. And she's very protective of her kitten, who had a wounded foot. And so she would not let anybody near that kitten. So I adopted them together. But still, she goes through, I think that she remembers when the people came in the building and they were taking her kittens, and her watching one by one go. And I know that they say that cats don't, know the difference and whatnot, but they do. I mean, you guys just heard her, and and then she'll leave that little sheep kitten thing, wherever, um, whose ever door she wants to talk to. So she'll leave it at my office if I'm still in here, or she'll put it next to my bed. But it's a whole production. So very appropriate, Ma Kisses. Thank you for contributing to the content. And Desiree goes on to say that in May, Desiree gave birth to her other triplets at just 20 weeks while Tom was an hour away at work. One was stillborn and one was alive. So that gives us the May time frame where she lost Madeline in February, she stated, and the triplets were 20 weeks in May. So that's putting it back the 8 weeks. So really, it sounds like Madeline must have been miscarried around that 12-week mark. And here's a sweet lady. And here's your trigger warning because here's both of these babies. Um, Now, one was born not alive, and one did stay alive for a couple of hours. It does not state if they made the decision to do life saving measures with the surviving one. They're at the 20-week mark. That's really, really, really right there where they will either decide that there's a chance or not. With the multiples do tend to cook a little faster, if you will. So I don't know, when it doesn't state here whether or not they did put the baby on a respirator or whatnot. Baby was breathing on his own, which is really, really impressive for a 20-week-old multiple, because at that time, then there were twins as opposed to triplets, so there was more room in the womb. But she had had the surgery for the ovarian cyst, so you don't know how that was pushing on things either. But you look at these tiny little hands, and you just have a whole new appreciation for the miracle that birth is, and just the fascination that any one baby makes it to term. Well, all the things that can go wrong, and you see that halfway through, they are just little babies. They're just putting on fat. They're already formed. They're little people in there. So this stillbirth photo is just amazing, and I will speak on that. And then it says, Desiree didn't realize that her water broke at first and thought the wet patch she noticed on her bed was just urine. However, she began cramping and went into labor shortly after. This is another point that I think is important. I don't know if her doctors were as cautious as mine were. Mine were pretty guarded with me, just because of the complications I was having with my kidneys and whatnot. And so I was on bed rest a lot in my last 3 pregnancies, over my last 4 babies. So I was very, very much on bed rest at the 20-week. And you would glean in that if there had already been one miscarriage and the surgery, and it doesn't say if she was on bed rest, but I would imagine that there might have been some talk about it. Always talk to your doctor about your activity level, and what you're comfortable with, and if you haven't had any complications. Now, where Desiree says that she didn't realize that her water broke at first and thought the wet patch she noticed on her bed was just urine. That's also important, as like I say, I did have an amniotic leak with my third pregnancy, and it is odd. You just kind of do feel like a little warm gush. You're like, oh gosh, did I just pay myself a little? And I was like, I don't know, it just wouldn't leave my mind. And so I was at my in-laws, for the holidays. It was Christmas and everything, and I didn't want to, upset anybody, and or bother the Christmas stuff. But I pulled my mother-in-law aside, and She's a nurse, and I don't know if I'm okay. I kind of feel like I peed, but I don't know, and she was like, go to the ER. It's not gonna be any big deal if it is just pee. It's not gonna be a big deal. If it is something you need to know, and you shouldn't mess around, And I was about that 20 weeks, and they do a little test. So it's just a little like a little um, I don't know if you've ever well, I guess when you're pregnant you pee on a stick. It's something similar to that, and they just do this thing, and then if it turns a color, they can tell if it's amniotic fluid or not. And it was, and so then I was um, put on bed rest. I was not having any contractions or anything. Had an ultrasound. It was very reassuring. There was no fluid loss. They just figured that there might have been a little tear somewhere, but there wasn't anything showing. It was not dilated. It was really just a mystery, but then it was like very, very guarded from that point for the next few weeks, and then went on to carry to term. But I just had a little amniotic leak. So the point is when in doubt, go to the doctor. And as I say, I have a lot of heartbreaking stories in my emails of women who talk about this and talk about that, but they didn't know that they didn't know this. They blame themselves for this and that. And that's where I don't want anybody to blame themselves. How could they know? However, we have the beauty of a teaching opportunity and a healing space in our community that we can provide education so that we as women can talk to our friends, can talk to our daughters, can talk to our neighbors about things like this, so that then, if they are questioning something, you'll be able to say, hey, go and get checked out. Look for this, watch for that. Don't wait around. One of the biggest things I can tell you as a mother of 6 is that premature labor is the silent. Um, I don't know what to say with that word, but you don't know that you're in labor. The only thing that made me realize that I was in labor was that the pressure was becoming regular. You have Braxton Hicks, and it was similar to Braxton Hicks when I went into premature labor at 29 weeks with the twins. Um, and I went, and I let everybody in the waiting room go ahead of me because I was like, I don't really need to be seen. I was just like, I don't know. I'm here and just I don't know the pressures. I don't know. I was like, no, go ahead of me, go ahead of me. And I was sitting there for like an hour, and I'm watching the clock, and I'm going, you know what? These really are getting closer together. And so I went back up to the receptionist. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm just here, for reassurance, but something's not right. I mean, these really are getting a little bit closer. And they were like, well, you know what? A bed just opened. Let's go. And they checked and started making phone calls from right there, and they popped me into a position called reverse Trendelenburg. So that's where they put you upside down, basically. They were trying to get the cervix back up a little bit to get it to shut because I was already dilated to a 3, and I had lost my mucus plug, and was starting to bleed. And I did not go home from that point on. So I did end up carrying the twins to the 35 and 5 day mark from that 29 mark. I was on something called magnesium, where they give you a magnesium drip to slow those contractions down. And I was given terbutaline, and I was given prednisone shots, which were horribly painful, a literal pain in the ass, to develop the twins' lungs. And was monitored very closely. And had that all not have happened, my amazing 19-year-old twin boy would not be here because he suffered a stroke in utero, a spontaneous stroke. There's no rhyme or reason as to why it happened, but I was being monitored every 4 hours, and he didn't respond, and they thought that he had already passed away. And I made all kinds of deals in that operating room as I was getting wheeled down. I was like, I'll deal with whatever. I'll love him no matter what. Whatever. He was born with 50% oxygen at birth and 50% oxygen 4 hours later. So he does have cerebral palsy, but he does amazing, and you hardly would even know. He can't handwrite, but he can type faster than anybody I've ever seen. He can't ride a bike, so he outfishes every single angler in the states. I mean, it's just amazing, and I worked hard, and I promised God in those moments that I would work so hard to optimize his potential that I would not I would not ever feel burdened. It would be my pleasure to optimize his potential, and I am extremely grateful for being provided that opportunity. And so that's where I really like to share with other women too of that premature labor feeling, that it's not labor pains. Labor pains, you always, when you're pregnant the first time, you're like, what if I don't even realize that I'm in labor? And I just go to the bathroom and have a turlet, baby. What if I just have it in the turlet? I don't realize it's in the turlet and I flush it. You know what I mean? You just go through that. Oh, you will know when you're in labor. When that first labor pain hits you, you are like, Mother of God. Because you want to go into labor because you're miserable and you're swollen and everything. And then you get the pain, and then the second one, you're like, oh, I can wait. I can hold this fucker in for 10 years, maybe even 20. I don't want to go through this. Yeah, it's funny. Sorry, I said the F bomb. But anyway, um, there are so many stories that I have of women who were less fortunate than I am. And women have went through therapy and have held the pain of that worst day of their life so close to their heart, and to have it gouged out by the unnamed one needs to stop, and education needs to come forward, and that's what we're going to do here. I would love to continue to receive stories in my email. I am grateful for the trust that you bestow in me in telling me your story. My email, as you know, is tabithajane0@gmail.com. Like I say, I totally respect that people don't want to talk about it, but I'm here. I am absolutely here for you. Now, Desiree goes on to say that baby Natalie was stillborn while her brother Mason gave his family just enough time to say hello before passing away. Natalie was born first as Desiree cried through the contractions. Here you have this photo. Now, to me, it does not say which one was stillborn, but I would tend to say that it's this one, as you can literally see. It looks like, the casual diagnosis of where they say water on the brain. Or is it this one as something stopped and it's that this baby's head is more formed? I don't know in this picture. I can't tell. It looks like the umbilical cord is there. Maybe it was this one that lived. It doesn't say, but they're just beautiful. Just a miracle. And Desiree says that she started screaming and she knew that She hadn't made it. She felt her slip out, and she knew, and the doctor came in and confirmed her death. By the time Tom arrived, Mason was still breathing, and this new dad was able to meet his only surviving triplet. And this is a beautiful picture of mom and dad with their two of the three triplets. So, as they are boy girl, identical twins are the same gender. A lot of people don't know that because the egg splits. Fraternal comes from two eggs. So they're different genders. They don't have to be different genders. I just misspoke. Scratch that. It's just that all the time, for the last almost 20 years, I've had people ask me if my boy-girl twins are identical and be like, no, one has a dick. The turtle sign. But so it's you can obviously be you can also be fraternal and be the same sex. Um so to have triplets, she could have ovulated and had 3 eggs. She could have ovulated very oh no. Kisses is doing more. She could have ovulated a couple of times over a couple of days. The egg stays alive for 72 hours and must be fertilized. You generally only shoot out 1 egg per month. When you are created, so like when you're even this little, 20 weeks old, girls have all of the eggs they're ever going to have when they are created. So the way that it goes is that your grandmother carried you as a daughter, as the daughter. How does that go? I read this the other day and I'm like, what? So it's like your grandmother had you in her thing because the baby that the mother forms then has all of the eggs that she'll ever have in her life, in her womb already. Then I suppose that they get bigger as you go. But as it goes, it's like your grandmother essentially had you in her as an egg in your mother. And it's really fascinating to really think about it all, right? Right. So, this photo is beautiful and it is heart-wrenching. It is genuine and it is beautiful and it is theirs. And I'm so thankful that they made the choice to share these pictures of the worst day of their life with us. As Desiree says, Tom walked in and then stormed out crying and punched a wall. He came back in to hold them. Mason first because he was the one still alive. Then Natalie, and held them and we cried. This is where I looked at this article several times because I'm assuming, based on that sentence, that they decided not to do invasive life saving measures for Mason, they must have determined that he would not survive. There is a very delicate balance. And it's the only thing that makes sense out of that sentence. Because as it says, Mason first, because he was the one still alive, then Natalie, and held them as we cried. Because like when my baby was my my twins were born, and they got him out of that room really fast because he was blue, and they put on pressurized oxygen, which they do. It's called BBO2. So, gosh, I can't remember, but it's a high force concentrated oxygen, I believe. And then this is what I don't get, because it says Natalie, who weighed 9.1 ounces. So when you look at that, you're going, oh, looks like 9 pounds, 1 ounce. No. And so it's weird the way that it says that, because it says 9.1 ounces. So Natalie weighed 9.1 ounce, and Mason weighed 9 ounces, were tiny in their parents' arms. And it's also interesting because of twin sets, the girl is often stronger. And so not in this case. So that I was just kind of interested in it. And then it says, doctors said this baby could make it, but they didn't know. I was heartbroken. I cried so hard I was in denial, she said. And that's why, when they said this baby could make it, but then obviously they didn't intervene. And this is an amazing photograph. And as I say, I will talk about this and how those photographs are important. And it says, when I held them, I kept hoping it was a bad dream. She said, I hoped I'd wake up and they'd still be in my belly, and I wondered how this could happen. Then it says, just hours later, Mason joined his sisters and passed away. So I don't know if they quickly intervened and then there was just no way, and then that. I don't know. Um, but you see these teeny tiny little handprints and footprints of them, and you compare the size, and like their entire hand is the same size as the fingernail of, I'm assuming that's the mom holding so if you can imagine a teeny tiny little hand the size of your fingernail, and Mason's the same. And she says, I don't know if there are words to describe the pain I felt when I held them, she said. Tom said he felt very torn, like they'd been ripped away for no reason. He was heartbroken, and she's never seen such hurt in his eyes or voice. And she said shortly after Mason's death, a volunteer photographer took bereavement photos at the hospital. Oh, look at them. They're so precious. Look at how both of them are the size. Both of them between her eyebrow and her chin, both babies fit. They're just so teeny and precious. Beautiful. And it's such a gift that she shared this with the world. Thank you, Desiree. And it says these photos of her with her babies in the hospital shortly after birth have become something she looks at and cherishes daily. She says she doesn't know what she would do without them. In the post that she writes, help her cope. She said, I know that the pictures are a little much for some people, but I still think that they are very pretty. And I do too. I think they're absolutely beautiful. And she says, or it says, as the family begins to cope with such a monumental loss, it's the photos that are continuing to help get them through. It's been really hard for Tom and I. I have to be strong and try not to show how hard it is, she said. But we talk about how we are feeling, and it has brought us closer. We get angry, but it won't change what happened. And I think that that's an important concept, is that grief has stages. Now, there's the anger and the denial and the acceptance, and they don't come in any particular order. And you can think that you're through with one stage of grief and it can come back. It's important that you let those emotions come and work through them, even if they're not in the order that you're ready for. Some people may be fine. They're in the acceptance phase or they're in shock. And then one day it's going to hit them or the other. When I was in nursing, I took care of a lady who had a stillbirth. The baby boy was 9 pounds. She had to birth him. He had died. She knew that she didn't feel the moving. You need to keep track of your baby's movements when you start to feel movement. And your doctor will tell you how many kicks you should feel per hour, etc., etc. If you don't feel any, drink some orange juice, some graham crackers, give some sugar and see, if you can kind of get baby moving. And your baby's going to move more when you're still. As you're walking back and forth, that baby's being rocked. That baby loves that rocking feel. So when you finally get ready to go to sleep, you lay down and the baby's going to get active. So, if you don't feel like you're feeling those kicks right, lay down and really pay attention. And like I say, any inkling or doubt, go into the emergency room. If you are to a certain point and the emergency room has you go up to the mother baby unit, you will do so, or they will wheelchair you in. Call your obstetrician, or if you have a general family practitioner, whatever. But don't be afraid to ask and get those reassuring tests. They're easy to do. The non-stress tests. Ultrasounds are so easy to access now. You used to only get one, midway through the pregnancy, and it looked like black and white ants fighting on the TV screen, and when the TV screen used to go to the black and white static after the national anthem was played. Do you guys remember that? Mine is old. So the lady didn't feel any kicks, and so she went in and they did an emergency ultrasound and determined that her baby had died. So she had to go in and was induced. She had to go in and give birth to her baby who was not alive. She seemed fine. They put her on our floor because I worked in the oncology unit. They did not put her in the mother baby unit because of the situation. Obviously, if she hurt other babies, it would be very painful. Which reminds me, if you ever see a baby or somebody pushing a baby cart and it has a butterfly, it means that the other twin passed away. Just a little FYI. The lady was fine. She was in total, I believe she was in shock. And her husband were there, and they were just fine. And she'd look at me, and she'd be like, can you go? I want to see my baby. Can you go but get my baby? And I'd be like, okay. And I would go down to the morgue and bring her baby to her. It's what she requested. She'd hold the baby. The social worker talked to us at report and told us that she had that right. That, when she asked, we were just to, bring baby to her. We were not to be like, oh, you don't want to do that or whatever. Nope. She was allowed to process the loss however she wished. That's a lot further than society used to be with loss. And some of the heartbreaking stories that I've read lately, were of people who had babies who they were not allowed to see again once they had their miscarriage, once they gave preterm birth, once they had stillbirth. So they have the questions in their mind. We have become more accepting in our society as we found out that mothers need the closure in the ways in which they choose. The social worker then came and worked with the mom, and they did the little plaster of Paris, little footprints and handprints. They did some things like that. She was allowed to just rock the baby as much as she wanted. She'd act like everything was fine. And then she'd go in the shower and she'd scream and cry and scream and cry. And she'd get out of the shower, act like nothing happened. It's the way that she was working through it. And I respect her. I'll never forget that. Poor lady. I'll never forget it. I'm just grateful that I was there to have had the honor to be a part of that incredible moment. And I hope that she's okay. I'll never forget her. As as it says here, you know, I really respect, the way they say this here. Again, so they say as they cope with the monumental loss, as those photos are everything to them. It's the photos, it's the mementos, the little lock of hair. It's those things that people want to be able to grasp onto, and it's these photos. And I will talk about that in a second. Look at these little baby angels. Yeah, indeed, because it does seem like she was the one who had passed. When you look here and you see the forward, it looks like she had more water, like water on the brain, kind of what they would say. And then she says, I loved my babies, including our other triplet, their sister Madeline, who died in the womb in February. And there are so many other people that cared for them. I wouldn't have wanted them to not be able to see their grandbabies, nieces and nephews, she said. Posting about these babies helps me. Looking at their photos and their footprints we had taken and plaster casts that we made hours after they passed away. Okay, that's what I was just remembering. And she says, fortunately, she has not received any backlash for posting the raw images along with her pain. Now, this is a very moving photo here, as you see the tiny casket. And caskets should never have to be made that small. You should not. This should not happen. And she wrote on Facebook that she was going to do it. And it says, if you don't want to see them, message me. But everybody wants to. She said it's closure for them. She said, although doctors don't know why the triplets died, the couple is planning on trying again when the time is right. And look at this. They have a little wedding ring with the little baby's feet right there. They're so precious. And she goes on to say that she wants to be pregnant again, and some people cannot wait for that. But some say I should wait and grieve. Partly so I don't have another preterm birth also, Desiree said. Whatever happens, we'll never forget Madeline, Natalie, and Mason. And neither will I, and neither will the people here in my community. Desiree, if you ever have listened to my coverage of your amazingly beautiful babies. Three little angels. Now, with that being said, there is an organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. NILDS. That is amazing. And they are a group of professional photographers that go, they're like on call at certain hospitals, most hospitals now, and they are called and they go and they work with the family after infant loss, such as this. They take the most amazing photographs you will ever see. And if you are a talented photographer who's interested in what I'm saying, and you want to work or volunteer with this organization, I would urge you to do so. I am a practicing photographer, like not practicing, but I practice my photography, and I'm not great. So I wanted to volunteer, and I went through the whole application and everything. I got halfway through, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, because they talk about all of the shutter speed and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not good. I'm not good enough. Um, and so they really have professional photographers that really, really work, and they provide this as a service. I don't believe there's any charge at all. I believe it's all through volunteer work. Um, if you're curious about what I'm saying, go to their website. I had a step grandmother who I would spend time with, and she was from that Victorian kind of era, and she had all of the photo albums, and I'd just, it was kind of morbid, but when she would talk about all of the memories and whatnot, and she had lost babies, and that they so there was I remember seeing the Victorian baby photos, and then they're out there. That's the only memory that some people have of their baby, of course. Um, and so I found an interest in that, and so I do go to the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep website, and I like to appreciate their work. Just incredibly moving photos. Something that is newer is I think that they do them either in like one of the clear isolates, or I don't know if the photographers come with a clear tub, but they do some photography of the infants that have not survived, fully immersed in water, kind of replicates the womb, and it slows down the process of other things. And that is, you can go to the website called Capturing Hope's Photo. It's called, so this concept that is done with in the water, in the clear tank, is called neonatal immersion photography. And it goes on to talk about, it says here, the infant bereavement photography has become a regular part of many women's hospitals due to birth defects, low birth weight, and premature births. A neonatal death happens within the first 28 days of a baby's birth, and 1 in every 4,000 births are neonatal deaths, sourced by the March of Dimes. Um, and you can look at some of these, of the neonatal immersion photography. And again, if you are a photographer and want to volunteer, these are some things that are really, really interesting, to look into. And I think that giving that gift to the family, that they will always have is, you can't put a dollar amount on it. It just for them to have there are people on Instagram who keep those photos up there, and they show that they have those photos in their home, so that then that baby is a part of their lives, and as they go on to have more children, if they choose, then their siblings look up and see that they have an older sister or brother angel. So some of those things are really important, and I think that um, we've came a long way from just infant loss being a taboo subject and never wanting to talk about it or certainly take pictures of it. Another thing that I would like to take this moment to mention, speaking of the March of Dimes, is that birth defects happen way before you're even thinking of your period being late. By the time your period is late, you already have a baby forming in there. And so many neural tube defects. The neural tube is what, the brain and the spine, which is formed right away. So many of those birth defects are caused by low low folic acid. And so when you begin having your period, or you're a woman of menstruating years, even before, give your daughters orange juice. It's the easiest way for me to say this, is just a well balanced diet is so important, and especially that vitamin C and the folic acid and iron. Look into these things. Look into what causes birth defects. Go to the March of Dimes. Talk to your daughters about making sure that their health is right. I impart this knowledge to my son's girlfriends. Drinking your orange juice? Why? You know. But it's just all of these things that we have this opportunity to speak about, and we don't know who all it's going to reach. And if we save one baby from suffering from a birth defect, if we save one mother from crying alone at night, if we heal one mother from the raw wounds that she feels that she can't talk to anybody about, then we've done our part. And if we talk to each other as women and respect and allow healing spaces for these things that happened, we are better because of it. And on that note, I will close and thank you for listening to this sensitive topic. And I'm always here. It takes me a few weeks sometimes to get to all of my emails, because I like to be very present in my response. And if I don't think that I can be very present, I won't respond. I want to always give each and every one of you the respect that you deserve, and my compassion and empathy and gratitude for sharing your stories with me. And thank you for listening. And let's keep this dialogue open. We're doing good things here. Thank you for listening, and I will end.